In the peaceful village of Amaneki, nestled between rolling hills and thick forest, the sun always rose to the sound of hymns. And at the center of that heavenly chorus was Adora, a girl with a voice so sweet that even the birds paused to listen. They said she was chosen by the heavens. She was born during the Harmattan moon, a rare celestial event when the sky turned golden at midnight. Her mother died the same night, and her father, broken by grief, raised her in the church. By the time she was 10, she could quote every psalm from memory. By 16, she led worship at every village gathering. By 18, people whispered that angels must have kissed her throat. Adora never missed a morning service. She was always first at the chapel, sweeping the steps, lighting candles, and kneeling with eyes closed and arms lifted as the morning sun poured through the stained glass. The villagers loved her. The priest adored her. And her father, now old and blind, listened with pride each morning as her voice filled the chapel. But Amaneki, like many old villages, kept secrets. Just beyond a river that divided the sacred from the profane was a forest called the Oka, meaning pure river. No one dared go there. The elders spoke of a curse, a fallen deity cast out by the gods for desiring what was never meant for mortals. They said Ekwensu, the old devil of the crossroads, made his home there, feeding on the desires of those who walked with shadows in their hearts. No one believed that anymore, of course. The world had changed. Radios played gospel music. People wore denim and sneakers to church. But Adora knew better. Because every night, when the village slept, she crossed the bridge into the Oka. Not once, not twice, but every single night. She would slip from her house with the silence of a snake. Gone were her choir robes. She wore crimson, a dress cut like flame. Her feet were bare, her wrists wrapped in silver bangles that jingled softly as she walked. And in the clearing at the heart of the forest, she danced. Not for joy, not for beauty. She danced for him. The trees around her pulsed with life, leaves glowing faintly. The air thickened. And always, without fail, at the stroke of midnight, he appeared. Tall, elegant, with skin darker than the deepest night and eyes like molten gold. He never spoke first. He watched her, arms crossed, lips curled in a knowing smile. And Adora danced until the forest itself seemed to tremble. "You dance well, Adora," he finally said one night. His voice was like honey laced with poison. "But why do you return, knowing what I am?" She stopped, chest heaving. Sweat clung to her like second skin. "Because you listen. Because you understand. Because God only hears my songs, but you hear everything else." Ekwensu smiled wider. "And what do you want, church girl?" Adora stepped forward, bold, unflinching. "I want to tear the silence apart. I want the world to hear what they're too holy to see." That night, they struck a deal. She would keep praising God in the morning, singing with all the purity she could gather. But at night, she would come to dance, to learn the forbidden rhythms lost to time. Rhythms that stirred the blood and echoed through the bones of the earth. And in time, he promised, she would open a door no one had opened in centuries. A door that led to a truth so ancient, even the gods had tried to bury it. Back in the village, no one noticed the shift at first. Adora still sang, still smiled, still helped the sick and fed the poor. But something was changing. When she sang now, people wept without knowing why. Babies cried. Candles flickered out on their own. And sometimes, just sometimes, those who watched her too closely swore her shadow danced even when her feet were still. Adaora's name now stirred unease, though no one dared admit it. She still led hymns every dawn, her voice just as sweet, but it carried something else now. A weight, a pull. The old women began murmuring that it wasn't the spirit that made them cry during worship, it was something else. Even the priest, once her greatest supporter, started noticing how the morning air felt thick after she sang. The birds no longer perched by the chapel's windows. Dogs howled during prayer. And yet, her father, blind and aging, remained unaware, praising her every day. What no one knew was that Adora was no longer fully herself. Each night, she danced deeper into Theoka, and Ekwensa taught her things buried beneath generations of silence. He showed her rhythms once used by priestesses of forgotten rivers, chants that bent time, and footwork that mirrored the beating of the underworld's drums. "You were made for this," Ekwensu whispered one night, placing his hand on her shoulder. His touch burned but didn't hurt. "Your soul holds music the heavens tried to silence." And Adora believed him. In the forest, she wasn't the church girl, the healer, the obedient daughter. She was fire, storm, and thunder. She danced with spirits no living soul could name, and they bowed as she moved. But power has a price. One morning, as she stood in church, something strange happened. The crucifix behind her cracked. Just a hairline at first, but enough for the priest to stop mid-sermon. His eyes searched hers, trembling. That night, the elders summoned a private meeting. "She sings too sweetly," one said. "She doesn't sleep like others," said another. My grandchild said, "She walks under the moon, barefoot and smiling. She's touched." But no one dared confront her. Not yet. Meanwhile, Adora's father began to change. He no longer slept peacefully. He spoke in his dreams, muttering names only the dead would know. "Obianuju, forgive me. I didn't know. I thought she would be free." Adora overheard him one night. Her mother's name. Obianuju. The woman who died giving birth to her, or so she was told. The next night, Adora did not dance. She knelt before Ekwensu in the clearing, eyes narrowed. "Tell me the truth. About my mother." The forest fell silent. Even the spirits froze. Ekwensu walked slowly around her. "She was one of us. A daughter of fire. She danced long before you did. She too praised God in the morning, and danced with me by night." Adora's breath caught. "She wasn't taken by illness?" she asked. "No," Ekwensa said, voice like a blade now. "She was betrayed." Adora's heart thundered. "By who?" He stared into her. "By the very ones who call you holy now." Then, in the smoke rising from the forest floor, she saw it. A vision. Her mother, beautiful, dark-skinned, radiant, dancing under moonlight. And, behind her, men with torches. Church leaders. The priest himself, her father, among them. They bound Obianuju, called her a devil's wife, and burned her in silence. They told the village she died in childbirth. Adora fell to her knees, screaming. The spirits encircled her, whispering in foreign tongues. Ekwensa knelt beside her and whispered, "You have two paths now, Adora. To destroy or to awaken." That night, Adora did not return home. She sat in the heart of the cursed forest, surrounded by flames that didn't burn and spirits who hummed like distant drums. Her eyes, once filled with devotion, now carried storm and sorrow. Ekwensu watched her in silence. "She was innocent," Adora said, voice steady, cold. "And they burned her. My own father." "Truth," Ekwensu replied, "is not holy. It is heavy." Adora stood. "Then I will make it heavier." She returned to the village the next morning with a smile carved onto her face. Her choir robes billowed in the harmattan breeze. She sang the opening hymn with more power than ever, and the crucifix behind her split clean in two. The congregation gasped. The priest dropped his Bible. I think we must pause the service," he stammered. "The structure may be." Adora turned. "Why fear what's already broken?" And then she sang a second verse. But this time, it wasn't from the hymn book. It was a song from the old world. A song of unveiling. The candles in the chapel blew out on their own. Shadows swirled across the walls. Some villagers covered their ears. Others began to weep uncontrollably. A woman fainted. And then, silence. Adora stepped forward and turned to the congregation. "I have a truth to speak." The priest tried to intervene. "My daughter, not here." But she stared into him, and he fell back, shaking. She lifted her hand, and the vision returned. This time, not only to her, but to everyone. Projected in the air like smoke visions, they saw Obianuju dancing under the moon, radiant, beloved. Then the betrayal. The flames. The lies.
Gasps.
Screams.
Cries.
You killed her, Adora said. And you raised me in the same chapel that silenced her. My voice is hers, and now, you will all listen. The congregation fled, but the doors slammed shut. Outside, the sky darkened, though it was barely past morning. A storm gathered where no clouds had been. Lightning danced across the roof. Ekwensu appeared, not as a beast, but as a noble figure cloaked in ash.
He did not speak.
He only watched. The priest collapsed to his knees. I did what I thought was right. She was dangerous. She was powerful, Adora said. Like me. Like every woman you feared.
He cried.
I feared losing the village. The people. The blessings. They said if we didn't burn her. You burned love. You burned light. She turned to the villagers. Some still cowered in corners. Others stared, mouths open, understanding dawning. I don't want revenge, she said. But I will not let this lie breathe another day. And then she walked to the altar and set it ablaze. The fire didn't spread. It burned only the altar, the pulpit where falsehoods had lived. It curled the pages of the hymn books, but did not touch the chapel itself. Outside, the wind howled. And then, suddenly, peace. The doors opened, the skies cleared, and the forest, far away, let out a single low hum, as if satisfied. That night, Adora returned to Theoka. Ekwensu waited for her, as usual. Will you still dance? He asked. She smiled faintly. I dance for truth now, not for vengeance. He nodded. Then your soul is truly yours. But before she could ask what that meant, he vanished. For the first time since she was a child, Adora danced alone, and the forest watched in silence. Weeks passed. The village of Amaneki was no longer the same. The chapel was never rebuilt. The priest resigned, retreating into silence, haunted by the truth he helped bury. Some villagers abandoned the village altogether. Others stayed but whispered Adora's name like a warning and a prayer. Yet, Adora was not feared. She was watched. In the mornings, she still stood under the rising sun, singing. Her voice no longer sweet like honey, but deep like the soil after rain. Her melodies carried the echoes of the forest, the kind that made even the strongest men lower their heads. Children followed her. Women approached her in secret, asking, Is it true? Did our mothers once dance under the moon too? And Adora told them the truth. She began teaching the old rhythms, the forbidden songs, the dances buried by church bells and colonial fear. She taught them in silence, under moonlight, beneath the wide arms of baobab trees. No longer just for the devil, no longer for revenge, but for memory, for balance. But something stirred in the forest. One night, as she danced alone, a wind swept through Theoka, hot, wild, alive. And with it came a voice, not Ekwensu's, but one she had never heard before. Daughter of flame, you've awakened what should have slept. The trees twisted, the earth cracked, and from the roots rose a shadow, a form older than Ekwensu, cloaked in dust and bound by gold chains. Ekwensu appeared instantly, standing protectively before Adora. She is not yours, he growled. The figure laughed. She is power, and power belongs to no one. You broke the pact, trickster. You taught her too much. Adora stepped forward. Who are you? The figure's voice echoed like 1,000 drums. I am Ihiala, spirit of all silenced daughters. The buried ones. The forgotten priestesses. I am what rises when truth spreads faster than fire. Adora's heart pounded. You awoke us, child, Ihiala said. Now we rise, not just in you, but in all who remember. Behind Adora, the forest lit with glowing eyes. Dozens, hundreds of women in spirit form. Old priestesses. Young girls. Ancestors erased by time. They came humming, dancing, moving with the rhythm Adora had revived. Lead them, Ihiala said. not to worship the devil, not to shame the holy, but to restore the balance they broke. Equensa smiled, stepping aside. It was never about me. It was always about her. And so it began. The next day, Adora did not sing alone. She was joined by a procession of women from the village, mothers, daughters, grandmothers, wearing red and white, their feet bare, their spirits alive. They sang the old songs in the open now, blending worship with memory, praise with power. Amaneki became known across the land, not for scandal or sin, but for awakening. A place where truth walked without shame. A place where Adora, once a girl caught between God and the devil, became something greater. The voice of the forgotten, the daughter of flame, and the bridge between spirit and song. Final line. In morning, she still praised God, but by night, she no longer danced with devils. She danced with truth, and truth never bowed to fear.